After my dad's funeral, my mother thought I was weak. I became the storm she couldn't believe. I stood at my father's grave watching my mother laugh with her friends, and I knew she'd never loved him. The funeral was over, mourners were leaving, and there she was, Diana Bennett, dressed in designer black, smiling like she was at a cocktail party instead of burying her husband. My father's body was barely cold, and she was already planning her freedom. Poor Julia, I heard her friend whisper. She's taking it so hard. Too sensitive, just like her father. She'll get over it, my mother replied coldly. Michael was weak too. Always crying about feelings and emotions. I raised Julia to be stronger, but apparently, I failed. Those words cut deeper than any knife. She thought I was weak like Dad. She thought grief made me pathetic. She had no idea that beneath my tears was growing a rage that would transform me completely. My name is Julia Bennett, and I was 19 years old when my father died. My mother thought losing him would break me. Instead, it forged me into something she never expected. A storm. And that storm was about to change everything. Let me explain my family. My father, Michael Bennett, was a kind, gentle man who taught literature at a community college. He loved poetry, philosophy, and deep conversations about life. He was emotional, crying at movies and books. He was everything my mother despised. My mother, Diana, came from old money. Her family owned real estate across 3 states. She married Dad because he was handsome and charming, not understanding that his sensitivity wasn't temporary. Real men don't cry, she'd say constantly. Real men are strong and decisive. Dad tried to be what she wanted, but he couldn't change his nature. He felt things deeply. He cared about people and showed emotions openly. Over the years, Mom grew to hate him for it. She had affairs, barely hiding them. She spent his money carelessly. She insulted him constantly, calling him weak and pathetic. Dad never fought back. He just absorbed the abuse quietly. I love her, he'd tell me. Marriage means staying. I watched him diminish year by year, becoming a shadow of himself. Mom's cruelty crushed his spirit slowly but steadily. 3 months before he died, Dad took me to lunch. Julia, he said seriously, I need to tell you something important. I've been diagnosed with late-stage cancer. The doctors say I have maybe 6 months. I felt my world collapse. No, I whispered. We'll fight it. There's nothing to fight, he interrupted gently. It's too advanced. I've accepted it. Does Mom know? I asked. Yes, he said. She knows. She doesn't care. That hurt almost as much as the diagnosis. Over the next 3 months, I watched Dad fade. Mom barely visited him in the hospital. I can't stand seeing sick people, she'd say. I spent every day with him. We talked about life, love, and legacy. Don't let bitterness poison you, Dad advised. Your mother is who she is. Don't become like her out of anger. How can you defend her? I asked. After everything she's done to you? Because holding on to anger only hurts the person holding it, he explained. I choose peace. Dad died on a Tuesday morning. I was holding his hand. Mom was getting her nails done. When I called to tell her, she sighed like I'd interrupted something important. The funeral was expensive and elaborate. Not because Mom loved Dad, but because she cared about appearances. What will people think if we have a small funeral, she'd said. Hundreds attended. Dad's students, colleagues, and friends shared beautiful stories about his kindness and wisdom. Mom stood stiff and impatient, checking her phone constantly. After the burial, she hosted a reception at our mansion. She laughed and socialized like nothing had happened. I stayed quiet in the corner, overwhelmed by grief. That's when I overheard her calling me weak. Something snapped inside me. I'd been the quiet, obedient daughter my whole life. I'd watched her destroy my father without saying anything. I'd let her control and manipulate everything around her. Not anymore. I looked at her laughing with her shallow friends and made a decision. I would become everything she didn't expect. Strong, independent, and powerful. I would build a life she couldn't control or diminish. I would become a storm. That night, I started planning. I was a sophomore in college, studying business. I had some money from a trust fund my grandparents had left me. The trust fund was controlled by trustees until I turned 25, but I could access it early for education or starting a business. That was my opening. I'd always been interested in my grandfather's real estate business. He'd taught me about properties and investments before he died. Mom inherited his company but hired managers to run it, caring only about collecting profits. I'd learned everything I could from those managers, absorbing knowledge like a sponge. Now, I would use that knowledge. I withdrew from the expensive private university Mom had chosen for me. "What are you doing?" she demanded when she found out. "You need that degree to marry well." "I'm not going to college to find a husband," I replied calmly. "I'm building a career." "You're throwing away your future," she said. "I'm creating my future," I corrected. "There's a difference." I enrolled in a state school's business program and rented a small apartment off campus. Mom was furious. "You're humiliating me," she screamed. "What will people think? My daughter living in some dump?" "I don't care what people think," I said. "Neither should you." That was the first time I'd ever stood up to her. The shock on her face was priceless. I worked 3 jobs while attending school full-time. Waitressing, tutoring, and helping a property manager on weekends. The work was exhausting, but I was building skills and saving money. Mom called occasionally, always criticizing. "You look terrible. You've lost weight. This is ridiculous, Julia. Just come home." "No," I'd reply simply. My grades were perfect despite the workload. I was focused and determined in ways I'd never been before. Grief had transformed into fuel. Every day, I thought about Dad and what Mom had done to him. That memory kept me going when I was exhausted. I also accessed part of my trust fund to start investing. I bought a small, run-down rental property in a neighborhood that was improving. I renovated it myself on weekends, learning plumbing and electrical work from YouTube videos. "This is insane," my roommate said, watching me tear out old flooring. "You're a college student, not a contractor." "I'm learning," I replied. "Every skill makes me stronger." I rented the property for twice what I'd paid in mortgage and expenses. Profit from one property. That was the beginning. 6 months after Dad's funeral, I owned 3 rental properties. I reinvested every dollar of profit into more properties. My portfolio grew steadily. By the end of my junior year, I owned 7 properties and was making $50,000 annually in rental income. Mom heard about my success through family gossip. "Real estate," she scoffed when she called. "You're playing businesswoman with your trust fund money." How cute. "I'm building a business," I said. "And I'm profitable." "You'll fail," she predicted. "You're too weak and emotional, just like your father. Business requires ruthlessness you don't have." Her words stung, but they also motivated me. I would prove her wrong about everything. Senior year, I took a bold step. I approached the trustees of my grandfather's estate. "I want to buy some of the smaller properties from my mother's portfolio," I proposed. "I can offer fair market value." The trustees were skeptical. "Your mother won't sell to you." "She will if the price is right," I predicted. "And if she doesn't know it's me buying." I created an LLC, hiding my identity behind corporate names. I made offers on 3 properties that were underperforming in Mom's portfolio. She sold them quickly, happy to dump problem properties for cash. She had no idea she'd sold them to me. I spent 6 months renovating those 3 properties. They were in terrible condition because Mom's managers had neglected them. I worked day and night, sometimes sleeping on site. My hands got calloused. My back ached constantly. But I transformed those properties into beautiful, profitable rentals. Within a year, they were making double what they'd earned under Mom's management. I graduated college with honors and a real estate portfolio worth over $1 million. I was 23 years old and financially independent. Mom attended my graduation, looking bored. "Now what?" she asked. "Are you going to get a real job? Or keep playing with houses?" "I'm expanding," I said simply. "I'm going to build something bigger than you can imagine." She laughed. "You? Build something? Julia, you're smart, I'll give you that. But you don't have what it takes to really succeed. You're too much like your father. Too soft." I smiled, letting her believe whatever she wanted. Underestimating me was her mistake. Over the next 2 years, I quietly bought more properties. I focused on Mom's portfolio, purchasing underperforming properties through various LLCs. She never connected the dots. She thought she was selling to different investors. By age 25, I owned 30 properties. My annual income hit $500,000. I hired a small team to help manage everything. I reinvested constantly, growing faster and faster. Mom's portfolio, meanwhile, was shrinking. Her managers were incompetent, and she was too busy socializing to notice. Properties declined in value. Tenants left. Income dropped. Finally, her accountant told her the truth. "Mrs. Bennett, your real estate portfolio is in trouble. You've lost 40% of its value in 5 years." Mom panicked. For the first time in her life, money problems threatened her lifestyle. She tried selling more properties, but I bought them through my LLCs at below-market prices. She was desperate and accepted low offers. I was consolidating her empire piece by piece, and she had no idea. Then came the moment I'd been planning for. Mom's accountant discovered the pattern. "Mrs. Bennett, almost all your property sales have gone to companies controlled by the same person." "Who?" Mom demanded. "Your daughter," he revealed. "Julia owns all of it." The silence was deafening. I imagined her face, the shock and rage. She called me immediately, screaming. "You snake! You've been stealing from me." "I've been buying fairly," I corrected calmly. "Every sale was legitimate." "You chose to sell." "I chose to buy." "Why?" she demanded. "Why would you do this to your own mother?" "Because you destroyed Dad," I said, my voice steady. "Because you called us both weak. Because you spent years thinking you were superior. I wanted to show you that the weakness you despised was actually strength you couldn't recognize." "I'll sue you," she threatened. "I'll take everything." "Go ahead," I replied. Every transaction was legal. Every purchase was documented. "You have no case." She hung up, furious. But she couldn't do anything. I'd outplayed her completely. Word spread through our social circle. Diana Bennett's daughter had outsmarted her and taken most of her real estate empire. People gossiped endlessly. Some admired me. Others called me ruthless. I didn't care about either opinion. I cared about building something meaningful in Dad's memory. I renamed my company Michael Bennett Properties. I implemented Dad's values: fair rents, good maintenance, and treating tenants with respect. "This is how Dad would have run things," I told my team. With integrity and kindness. My business thrived. Happy tenants stayed longer. Word spread about our fair practices. We had waiting lists for our properties. Meanwhile, Mom's remaining properties continued declining. She'd lost most of her wealth and had to downsize from the mansion to a smaller house. I didn't gloat or celebrate her downfall. I felt nothing but a sense of completion. I'd proven Dad wasn't weak. Kindness and sensitivity weren't weaknesses. They were strengths that built sustainable success. At 27, I was a millionaire several times over. I owned 60 properties across 2 states. I employed 15 people. I was featured in business magazines as a young entrepreneur to watch. How did you build this so quickly? Journalists asked. I learned from my grandfather and was motivated by my father's memory, I'd explain. My father taught me that strength comes in different forms. Compassion, integrity, and persistence are powerful forces. I started a scholarship fund in Dad's name for students studying literature and humanities. My father believed these subjects were valuable, I told the university. This fund honors that belief. Mom heard about the scholarship. She called for the first time in months. A scholarship, she said bitterly. For useless degrees? Your father wasted his life on books and feelings. Why honor that? Because his life had meaning, I replied. He touched thousands of students. He made the world gentler and more thoughtful. That matters more than money. You sound just like him, she spat. Weak and sentimental. Thank you, I said sincerely. That's the best compliment you've ever given me. I hung up feeling lighter than I had in years. Mom's opinion no longer had power over me. I'd proven everything I needed to prove. I expanded into commercial real estate, buying small office buildings and retail spaces. The business model was different but profitable. I applied the same principles: fair prices, good maintenance, and respectful relationships. My reputation in the industry grew. People wanted to work with Michael Bennett Properties because we were reliable and ethical. In a cutthroat industry, you're surprisingly kind, one business partner observed. Kindness is strategic, I explained. Treating people well creates loyalty. Loyalty creates stability. Stability creates profit. It's not complicated. I also started mentoring young entrepreneurs, especially women from difficult backgrounds. I know what it's like to be underestimated, I'd tell them. Use that. Let people think you're weak while you're actually getting stronger. Many of my ments went on to build successful businesses. Watching them succeed felt almost as good as my own success. At 29, I was featured on the cover of a major business magazine. The Storm: How Julia Bennett Built a Real Estate Empire While Honoring Her Father's Legacy, the headline read. The article detailed everything: Dad's death, Mom's cruelty, my quiet rise, and my eventual dominance. Mom read the article. I knew because she called, furious. You told them everything. You humiliated me publicly. I told my truth, I said calmly. If that humiliates you, perhaps you should reflect on your actions. I was a good mother, she insisted. I gave you everything. You gave me material things, I corrected. But you destroyed the one parent who actually loved me. You mocked sensitivity and kindness. You taught me what not to be. I taught you to be strong, she argued. No, I said. Dad taught me to be strong. Real strength is being kind in a cruel world. Maintaining integrity when it's easier to be ruthless. Building something that helps others, not just yourself. That's strength. That's what Dad had, and you never recognized it. There was a long silence. Then she said something surprising. Maybe I was wrong about him. I nearly dropped the phone. What? Your father, she said slowly. Maybe I didn't understand him. He was different from me. I thought different meant weak. But you've proven that his qualities, the things I hated, they work. They build success. I was wrong. It wasn't a full apology, but it was more than I'd expected. Thank you for saying that, I said quietly. Mom and I didn't become close after that conversation, but our relationship improved slightly. She stopped calling me weak. She occasionally asked about my business with genuine interest. You're doing well, she'd admit grudgingly. Better than I ever did with those properties. Because I care about them, I explained. You saw them as money. I see them as homes and businesses that affect real people's lives. She couldn't fully understand that perspective, but she tried. That was progress. I continued expanding. By 30, I owned 100 properties. My net worth hit $20 million. But wealth wasn't the point anymore. The point was building something meaningful. I created a program offering affordable housing to teachers and social workers. These professions are underpaid but crucial, I announced. They deserve quality, affordable places to live. The program got national attention. Other property owners started similar initiatives. Julia Bennett is changing the industry, headlines read. Her compassion-based business model is surprisingly profitable. I thought about Dad constantly. Would he be proud? I believed he would. I'd taken the sensitivity and kindness he'd taught me and built an empire on those values. At one of my properties, I placed a plaque, in memory of Michael Bennett. He taught us that strength comes in many forms. Tenants often asked about the plaque. I'd explain Dad's story, how he was gentle and kind in a world that valued aggression, how he was mocked for his sensitivity, but how those same qualities inspired me to build something good. Your father sounds amazing, they'd say. He was, I'd agree. And he was never weak, despite what people thought. I started speaking at business conferences about compassionate capitalism. You can be profitable and ethical, I'd tell audiences. You can succeed without crushing others. In fact, kindness often leads to better long-term results. Some business leaders dismissed me as naive. Others listened carefully and changed their practices. I didn't need everyone to agree. I just needed to demonstrate that my approach worked. My company became certified as a B Corporation, committing to social and environmental responsibility alongside profit. Why limit your profit potential? Investors asked. I'm not limiting profit, I explained. I'm building sustainable profit that doesn't harm people or communities. That's smarter long-term strategy. The numbers proved me right. Michael Bennett properties had lower tenant turnover, fewer legal issues, and stronger community relationships than competitors. Our profit margins were actually higher because of reduced costs in these areas. At 32, I received an unexpected call from a film studio. We want to make a movie about your story, the producer said. From your father's death to building your empire. It's inspiring. I was hesitant. Did I want my family's pain turned into entertainment? But the producer promised to handle it respectfully, focusing on themes of resilience and redefining strength. I agreed, with conditions. Dad must be portrayed accurately, I insisted. As sensitive but strong. Not weak. Absolutely, the producer promised. The movie, called The Storm, premiered 2 years later. It starred respected actors and told our story beautifully. Critics praised it for challenging traditional masculinity and showing that emotional intelligence is strength. Mom attended the premiere. Watching her own cruelty portrayed on screen was difficult for her. She left halfway through, looking shaken. Later, she called. I didn't realize how bad I was, she admitted. Seeing it from outside. I was terrible to him. To both of you. Yes, I agreed. You were. Can you forgive me? She asked. I thought carefully. I'm working on it. Forgiveness takes time. But I appreciate you acknowledging the truth. That was honest. I wasn't ready to fully forgive yet, but I was open to the possibility eventually. The movie's success brought more attention to my business and message. I was invited to speak at universities, business schools, and conferences worldwide. How do you balance compassion with business success? Students asked. They're not opposites, I'd explain. Compassion informs better business decisions. Understanding people's needs, treating them fairly, building trust, these create strong foundations for profit. I also talked about grief as fuel. When my father died, I could have collapsed. Instead, I channeled that pain into purpose. Grief doesn't have to destroy you. It can transform you. Many people shared their own stories of loss and transformation. You gave me permission to be sad and strong simultaneously, one woman told me. I thought grief made me weak. Grief makes you human, I replied. What you do with that grief determines your strength. At 35, I diversified into sustainable development. Building eco-friendly housing that was also affordable. Sustainability shouldn't be a luxury, I argued. Everyone deserves to live in healthy, efficient homes. This venture was expensive and risky. My advisors warned against it. But I believed in it, and it aligned with Dad's values about caring for the world. 2 years later, the sustainable housing project was profitable and winning awards. Mom's health declined when she hit 70. Decades of stress, anger, and superficiality had taken their toll. She called me one afternoon, her voice weak. "Julia, I'm in the hospital. Can you come?" I visited, finding her small and frail. Age had diminished the intimidating woman who'd terrorized my childhood. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. "I wasn't sure you would." "You're still my mother," I replied. "Despite everything." We talked for hours. She apologized more fully than ever before. "I destroyed your father because I couldn't understand him. I destroyed parts of you too. I'm sorry." "I know," I said. "And I've worked through most of that pain. I built something good from the wreckage." "You did," she agreed. "You became everything I thought was impossible. Strong and kind. Successful and compassionate. I was wrong about what strength looks like." She reached for my hand. "Your father would be so proud." "I'm proud too, though I don't deserve to be." I squeezed her hand. "Thank you for saying that." Mom recovered from that hospitalization but never fully regained her health. We spoke regularly afterward, building a tentative but real relationship. She couldn't undo decades of damage, but she tried to do better. At 37, I fell in love for the first time. His name was Alex, a teacher at a school near one of my properties. We met when he came to my office to thank me for the affordable teacher housing program. "You've changed my life," he said. "I can afford to live near where I teach because of your program." We talked for 2 hours that day. He reminded me of Dad, sensitive, thoughtful, passionate about helping others. We dated for a year before getting engaged. Mom met Alex and approved, shockingly. "He's good for you," she admitted. "Gentle but strong. Like your father." Coming from her, that was huge growth. Alex and I married in a simple ceremony. No elaborate production, just close friends and family. Dad's favorite poems were read. His presence was felt throughout. "I wish he could meet you," I told Alex. "He'd love you." "I feel like I know him through you," Alex replied. "You carry his best qualities." We honeymooned at a cabin by a lake, disconnecting from work completely. For the first time in years, I relaxed. "You don't always have to be the storm," Alex observed. "Sometimes you can just be Julia." He was right. I'd spent so long proving my strength that I'd forgotten how to simply exist. "I'm learning," I admitted. "You've taught me it's okay to be vulnerable." Alex and I bought a small house, deliberately modest despite my wealth. "I don't need a mansion," I told confused friends. "I need a home." We furnished it with comfortable, meaningful pieces. I hung photos of Dad everywhere. "He should be present here," I explained. Alex understood completely. At 39, we had our first child, a daughter. We named her Michelle, after Michael. Holding her, I felt overwhelming emotion. "Hi Michelle," I whispered. "Your grandfather would have loved you so much. You're named after the kindest man I've ever known." Raising Michelle, I was conscious of teaching her Dad's values. "Be kind," I'd tell her. "Kindness isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing you can be." I also taught her about business, but always with ethics attached. "Money is a tool," I explained. "It can build good things or destroy. Choose wisely." Mom met Michelle and softened even more. "She's beautiful," Mom said, holding her great-granddaughter carefully. "Don't make my mistakes," she told me. "Value her sensitivity. Encourage her emotions." I wish I'd done that with you. You can do it with her, I offered. You can be the grandmother she needs. Mom took that seriously. She spent time with Michelle, reading to her and playing gently. Watching Mom be tender with my daughter healed something in me. At 40, I stepped back from daily business operations. I'd built an incredible team who ran things smoothly. My role became more strategic and philanthropic. I established the Michael Bennett Foundation, funding arts education, mental health services, and programs supporting emotional intelligence. My father believed emotions were gifts, not burdens, I told the foundation board. This foundation honors that belief by helping people understand and value their emotional lives. The foundation gave millions annually to schools, nonprofits, and research programs. You're changing how society views emotions, a psychologist told me. Particularly for men and boys. Your father's legacy is reaching millions. That meant everything. Dad had impacted thousands through teaching. Now, through my success and foundation, his impact multiplied exponentially. I also wrote a book. The Storm Within: How Grief, Kindness, and Determination Built an Empire. It became a bestseller, resonating with people who'd been underestimated or told their sensitivity was weakness. You gave me permission to feel, readers wrote. You showed me that emotions and success aren't opposites. Book tours took me worldwide. I spoke in dozens of countries, spreading Dad's message about redefining strength. The world tells us to be hard and emotionless, I'd say. But that's not strength. Real strength is remaining kind despite cruelty. Staying sensitive despite a harsh world. That's revolutionary. Mom's health declined further. At 75, she was diagnosed with heart disease. I don't have long, she told me matter-of-factly. Maybe 6 months. We spent those months together, truly connecting for the first time. She shared stories about her own difficult childhood. My parents were cold, she explained. Emotions were forbidden. I learned to suppress everything. I thought that was strength. It must have been lonely, I said. It was, she admitted. I passed that loneliness to your father and you. I'm sorry. We talked about Dad extensively. Tell me what he was really like, she asked. Before I crushed his spirit. I shared memories, Dad's laugh, his terrible jokes, his passion for teaching, his endless patience. He sounds wonderful, Mom said, crying. I destroyed something precious because I didn't understand it. He forgave you, I said. He told me to before he died. He said holding grudges only hurt the person holding them. He chose peace. He was better than me, she acknowledged. Better than most people. In those final months, Mom transformed. She became softer, more honest, more human. Cancer had stripped away her pride and pretense. Underneath was a scared woman who'd never learned how to love properly. Mom died on a spring morning with me holding her hand, just like I'd held Dad's. Thank you, she whispered. For not giving up on me. For becoming better than I ever was. Rest now, I said gently. You're forgiven. She smiled and closed her eyes. Her funeral was small and genuine, nothing like Dad's elaborate production. A few true friends, family, and people whose lives she'd touched in her final years. I spoke about her transformation. My mother spent most of her life being hard and cold. But in the end, she learned that vulnerability isn't weakness. She learned to feel and love. That took courage. People cried hearing about her change. Redemption stories always move people. After the funeral, I visited Dad's grave. She finally understood, I told him. She realized you were never weak. She apologized for everything. I thought you'd want to know. Standing between their graves, I reflected on the journey. From heartbroken 19-year-old to 41-year-old business leader, mother, and advocate. I became the storm you couldn't believe, I whispered to Mom's grave. But not the destructive kind. The kind that clears away the old and brings new growth. The kind that's powerful but also nourishing. That's the storm Dad taught me to be. At 42, I did something unexpected. I sold majority ownership of Michael Bennett Properties to my employees. You built this with me, I told them. You should own it too. The sale made dozens of my employees millionaires. Some cried receiving their ownership papers. Why would you do this? They asked. Because Dad taught me that wealth should be shared, I explained. Because success that only benefits one person isn't real success. Because you earned this. I retained enough ownership to stay comfortable but gave away most of my wealth to the foundation and employees. You're crazy, some business associates said. You just gave away hundreds of millions. I gave away money, I corrected. I kept everything that matters, purpose, relationships, and Dad's legacy. Alex supported my decision completely. You're living your values, he said. That's rare and beautiful. Michelle, now 3 years old, would grow up comfortable but not excessively wealthy. I want her to understand work, empathy, and contribution, I told Alex. Too much money can insulate you from humanity. I focused on the foundation and advocacy work full-time. Speaking, writing, and funding programs that promoted emotional intelligence and redefined strength. The world is slowly changing, I told audiences. Slowly recognizing that sensitivity and compassion are strengths. We have more work to do, but progress is happening. Today, I'm 45 years old. 26 years after Dad's funeral. I built a life he would be proud of, successful, meaningful, and rooted in kindness. I'm not wealthy anymore by billionaire standards, but I'm rich in ways that matter. Strong family, purposeful work, and positive impact. Michelle is now 6, smart and emotionally intelligent. She cries when sad, laughs freely, and hugs everyone. You're raising her well, Alex says. Like your father would have. Sometimes I think about that day after Dad's funeral when Mom called me weak. I was weak then, weak with grief, weak with loss. But that weakness became my strength. It pushed me to prove that Dad's values worked. That kindness could build empires. That sensitivity could change industries. That the traits Mom despised were actually powerful forces for good. I became the storm she couldn't believe, I often tell Michelle. Not because I became hard and cruel like Grandma once was. But because I became powerfully kind like Grandpa always was. That's the strongest storm of all. Michelle nods, not fully understanding yet. But she will. I'm teaching her what Dad taught me, that real strength is staying soft in a hard world. Remaining kind despite cruelty. Building up instead of tearing down. That's revolutionary. That's the storm. And that storm continues, carried forward through my daughter and all the lives touched by Dad's legacy. The storm that changes everything not through destruction, but through growth, compassion, and unshakable belief in the power of kindness. That's my story. From weak daughter to powerful storm. But the power was always Dad's, flowing through me, changing the world one kind act at a time.